communist. Do you know what I mean? And they were going to put, because my granddad died, he was crushed when he was on a kind of a YTS scheme in 1936. On Boxing Day 1936, he was crushed by a train because he was insufficiently trained. Socialism, you know, I'm a socialist, but I tell you what, Left Unity is not going to exclude anybody as far as I'm concerned, as long as they agree with the basic points of a radical transformation, defence of working people, stand against racism and war. We have to be as inclusive as possible. That has to be absolutely the core. You look at the International Working Men's Association. Karl Marx cooperated at certain times with anarchists, had huge arguments with them at other times. Now I think we will sort out those differences in common struggle, in trying to build a membership organisation which will stand absolutely with working people and the poor and the oppressed. And I don't think you resolve things, as many people have said, by going back and saying, let's have a discussion about Kronstadt. Oh, for Christ's sake, let's beat the bedroom tax. That's how to sort out who's right and who's wrong. That's where we begin. And I'd say that with the members in the Labour Party, if you don't want to leave Labour now, well, work with us in a common united front. I know the best members of the Labour Party will always be there. I know, because I bump into them on campaigns all the time. Like the bedroom tax demo in Sheffield. I met Labour Party members, I met anarchists, I met Mandy from News from Nowhere Bookshop, who's a radical libertarian and a feminist, and these are all friends of mine that I meet in places after places after places, and I want us all to be in that common organisation. That's the reality. And we will find out who's right and who's wrong in that common struggle against our real enemy. And that's why I'd say to everybody in the Socialist Party and stuff, I have never, well, I tell you what, I bet I have been a sectarian. Do you know what? All of us have who've been in organisations. There have been times when every single one, I used to have arguments, remember Richard Knight? I used to have arguments. I was the SLP organiser in Liverpool. Richard was the militant organiser. Do you know what we argued with on one of the big demonstrations when there were 50,000 people in Castle Street? The Sama Samaj Party in Sri Lanka. I'll tell you what, I knew nothing about the Sama Samaj Party. We were arguing about abstruse points because we were looking whatever divided us. Now we look at what unites us. I spoke with Tony Mulhern for his candidacy in front of 450 people. They knew my background because they had a common interest in standing against the disgraceful behaviour of Labour councils, yes, Labour councils, who are actually sacking thousands of people, who are closing libraries. That's the reality. That's where we decide. And actually, lots of good grassroots Labour Party members want to fight that. But I tell you what, never have I seen the Labour left so weak. This is what I'd say to Labour Party members. Now, Labour Party companies are pre-arranged rallies of bureaucrats, excluding grassroots activists. I just started to write down left Labour MPs, Jeremy Corbyn, John O'Donnell, Dennis Skinner, and I've run out, I mean, honest to God, when I was a young Marxist, Trotskyist, whatever, the Labour Party left were within a whisker of winning over the Tony Benn campaign. Do we really think that's even a possibility? I'll just raise that issue for anybody in the Labour Party. And it's sad. I wish there was a vibrant Labour left with whom we were working and arguing. Tragically, there isn't. I think if Left Unity can build into a strong membership organisation that fights in the communities and the trade unions and has an electoral arm, and we've got to be measured. I'd say to people in the Green Party, I was working with people in the Green Party in Sheffield over the libraries campaign, good activists. There are areas of the country like Brighton, with the council where I've disagreed with actions of Green Party, and I know there's a Green left. And I think Left Unity, I hope, I'm not on a steering committee, I'm not going to join a steering committee, I'm a grassroots activist and a speaker, other people will do that sort of thing. I hope they will say, we will have a non-aggression pact with other forces on the radical left, the Greens, any organisation that want to stand. It's ludicrous that two left-wing or radical organisations should stand in the same constituency. We should say that, we'll step aside. It'll take time to build this. It'll be small numbers of electoral initiatives we can undertake depending on the strength that we garner. And so we have to walk on a whole number of issues. We have to make sure the absolute centrality at the moment, where people are discontented, is the bedroom tax, is the NHS. That's the absolute. If you take one issue more than probably those, 1945 was about housing, the rebuilding of housing for the war damage. And do you know what? Do you know what the national debt was? You know these drivelling Tories going about the worst deficit ever? They lie. Number one, they don't understand the difference between the annual deficit and the historic debt. The historic debt is bigger, you know, since the Tories came in. They've increased it. They've not lessened it. It was 250% after the war. It was 240% in 1816. In 1816, with a 240% debt, they issued in the Industrial Revolution. In 1945, with 250% debt, we rebuilt council houses, we built a national health service, we nationalised the railways, we laid the basis of the welfare state. And here we have this pettifogging politics that pours £375 billion of quantitative easing into the pockets of very rich people and pauperises ordinary working people. We have to provide an alternative to that. Now this is, I think it's a great meeting. I counted at one point around 100 people, you know, before some people had to get off home. I think that's a really credible beginning. But I'll tell you what, to beat the forces against us, we need, within a year's time, to maybe have a rally of 300 with people like Ken Loach and stuff. We have to make it grow. And that means it's got to be inclusive and inviting and comradely. And I tell you what, number of things we say. I've had bitter arguments in the past. There will be bitter arguments in any organisation, but at the end of the day, we've got to be able to shake hands. There must be no swearing, no belittling, no crude remarks, no cabals. And I agree with the guy who said from Morning Star, as an ex-Trotskyist, we have some furious arguments about Stalin. I tell you what, I've done 2 articles for the Morning Star because it's one of the main voices. People might criticise me, but I'm going to speak at Marxism because they're a fantastic activist. Do you know what I mean? I exclude nobody. I will go and argue with Tories. I argue with Ed Vaizey over the Libraries campaign at Parliament. For God's sake, there is no socialist, radical, green or anarchist forum that I will not go into and discuss with people who are my friends and my comrades, and we're all together. And that is the sort of organisation I want to build in Left Unity, or want to see built with all the comrades around us. I massively respect people like Ken Loach and Nick Rack and a whole number of the people who are trying to create this organisation. I think we've got a good beginning, and we've got to honestly and generously fight for that. And I'm going to finish with a much greater person than me. And I'm going to finish with what I think it's all about. There was a great fighter for the abolition of slavery in the United States called Frederick Douglass. And my old mate, Paul Foote, God rest him, you know, I can't say in heaven because neither he nor I believed in a world beyond this one, but he read this at a meeting I was attending in 1974, and I never forgot these words. And this is what Frederick Douglass said: "If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favour freedom and yet deprecate agitation are men who want crops without ploughing the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one, or it may be both physical and moral. In other words, electoral and mass struggle, but it must be a struggle." I hope you all join us in that struggle to build a really clear, forward-looking, liberating left organisation. Thank you.